Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, Fubara's heroic second chance, the big challenges before him. In the course of the program, we take your questions, but first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions to the comment section. It's important to mention that we can only read comments with human names and the ones based on the subject matter. I have joining me via Zoom, the master himself, all the way from Uyo, Babajide, Kolado to Toju. Good to see you, Bikil.
Yeah, good to do this with you, Ibrahim. And I say a big thank you to our loyal viewers who are always with us every Saturday.
Yeah. Now, over the week, there's been story of Governor Simla Fubara, who has been handed what many are calling a heroic second chance, a chance to prove that leadership is not about surviving political storms, but about delivering results. But with high expectations, they say, come with bigger challenges. BKO, in politics, survival is half the battle. But what, in your view, makes his return more than just survival?
Yeah, this is an opportunity for him to live on in the hearts of the people of River State, who undoubtedly have shown tremendous support for him. Only the emergency rule um, was terminated, but that didn't happen. They waited for 7 hours before they began dispersing. And many people couldn't explain why Fubara did not arrive on the day the emergency rule officially terminated. But by the next day, they were still out there in their numbers. So many of them, different groups, members of the disbanded simplified group that helped bring him to power. A lot of the women groups and civil society organizations. The truth is, Fubara is someone who,
Hello, BKO. We're talking about the return of Governor Simila Fubara, who was suspended on March the 18th, 2025 by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, following the crisis, the chaotic incidents, the chaotic developments in River State, where the Rivers governor and that of the legislature were at loggerheads, so much so that it's descended or decentralized into um, serious problems. BK, we lost you
so,
momentarily. Can you carry on from where you left off?
so I'm saying that the people had the opportunity to show him just how much he's loved. And even the day after I was supposed to arrive, they were still there in their numbers. It was such a jubilant, large crowd of people came to receive him. And you saw quite a number of them, including the former president of NOPEN, um, Igwe Achese. You know, we saw the minority speaker, the speaker of the three-man assembly, Victor Kojongo, were all there, and the chairman who was sacked, by the court, including Ezenwo, the one they call Mayor Sugar. They were all there to give Fubara support. I was happy to hear Fubara um, thank the president for his fatherly disposition and for his decisive step in resolving the crisis. And he expressed utmost loyalty and eternal gratitude to the president. I've told people repeatedly that if not for the president, Fubara would have been impeached. Wike would have had his way. Because at a point, Wike said, look, this matter cannot be resolved anymore. He felt he had been insulted enough by a man that he brought to power. He was not prepared to forgive him. And after that judicial victory, what was in Wike's mind was to have him impeached so that I can see his back. But President Tinubu and his minders, a section of the president's minders came together and said, look, show that in this whole thing, you are the go-to person, you are the leader. Step in, stop this imminent impeachment, and try to resolve everything. Let everyone realize that the power revolves around you. You are the president. You can stop an impeachment from happening. So the president moved in quickly, and that was why Wike was honest in admitting that he felt bad that the president stepped in because he had already made up his mind to send Fubara packing. The judiciary had recognized the faction of the House of Assembly loyal to him, and that faction was determined to send um, Fubara home because they felt he had punished them enough. He refused to pay their salaries, he demolished their complex, and he even came to their quarters to threaten to demolish the assembly quarters as well. If Rivers elders and other people had not criticized that move, perhaps those guys would have been homeless today because they would have found a reason to demolish their houses. You know, the most beautiful assembly quarters in our country. We came to complain about some structures that he felt were bad. He was already thinking of demolishing that place as well. That was plain infantile and downright irresponsible to go to the place and be saying the place, so the structures were defective. And those guys were scared. And when you try to do such a thing to people, there's no way they will forgive you easily. So they had already made up their minds to impeach him. And the heavens would not have fallen if he had been impeached. This is Nigeria. Some people sometimes have an exaggerated impression of themselves. But when these things happen, you now wonder, what happened now? You know? So at the end of the day, the president stepped in. That was his saving grace. I think it dawned on him much later that the president's move was actually what saved him. And you can see he said that I resisted the temptation to challenge the constitutionality of the emergency rule and suspension of democratic structures and other actions uh, we endured during the period. So to him, um, nothing is too big, no sacrifice is too big to enthrone peace in River State. And he said he took the decision to um, abide by the decisions taken by the president and cooperate with the president because no sacrifice took place to secure peace, stability, and progress in River State. So I was happy to see him preaching forgiveness, deeper healing, reconciliation, unity, lasting peace, progress, and development. That is what we want to see. We want to see real progress happening. Now that all the contending groups have agreed that they buried the hatchet, they've agreed to let peace reign. So we can expect now that Fubara will be focused on development. It will have less distractions now from the House of Assembly, from his political godfather, the man he referred to as his leader, and he will have more time to focus on working harmoniously with the assembly to accelerate social and economic progress. Of course, this is what the people of Rivers State want to see. They voted him into office so that he can make good things happen for them. But if you spend all the time squaring up against enemies that you cannot defeat, then it's unfortunate. So hopefully now, the hangers on, a lot of whom were coming to Rivers simply to extort money from the governor and promise him heaven and earth, tell him that there's nothing wrong in three persons running an assembly, yet they cannot point at anywhere in the world where that has happened. It is only in our country that so-called educated people preach things that are inverted. You don't come and preach to our people that audits are okay. There's nowhere in the world where you find three persons running the parliament. But we had lawyers shamelessly saying that, oh, there's nothing wrong in three persons running the parliament. But today, the assembly, the judiciary has put that one to rest. No one will in future get up to say three of them can run the assembly now. Um, the assembly is already ready to work, eager to work with the governor, and they'll say, okay, bring the list of your commissioners. Let us have a look at them. And this is what takes me to the the challenges that the governor will face. Um, I can tell you that in our country, the the luckiest governors are the governors without godfathers. These are the governors who are free to take decisions, who are free to pick people that they believe can work with them. These are governors who don't need to take permission from anybody to take decisive actions. Because there are some actions that are really desirable, but because it will hurt your godfather or persons close to your godfather, you then decide that no, this is not the right time to take this kind of decision. Governors like Sheyi Makinde, for example, has no godfather. Somebody once claimed that he had a godfather and even listed um, the new Olubadan of Ibadan as his godfather. I said, no, this is not true. He had a number of powerful politicians that he was a pandered to, that he worked with to ensure victory. But as Makinde always said, I do not have a godfather, I have God the Father. This was what he always said. He didn't have a godfather. And it's not the only person. It is futile to imagine that it is impossible to win an election in Nigeria without a godfather. Many people have emerged without a godfather, without people breathing down their necks. If you build a solid political base, if you get your politics right, you will have a lot of people coalescing to guarantee victory for you without a dominant person acting as the godfather. So as things stand, Fubara still has a godfather. How does he pick the right people, the people he's convinced can work with him? He will still have to clear, he will still have to clear appointments with his godfather so as not to take any step that would anger his well-known godfather. So that is one challenge. How does he find a way to balance this whole thing? There are appointments that you make purely for politics. There are appointments that you make on account of competence. So how does he juggle this whole thing? Will he get to a point that he will just feel frustrated by the fact that it is the man in Abuja who is taking the big decisions, who is determining who gets what? Because as a governor, he would want to be in charge and be seen to be in charge. He will want a situation in which when people want something, they come directly to him, not come through an individual. Because these are the things that lead to friction. So how does he do that? There are many appointments now that he has to make. And there are appointments too that he may have to reverse because the administrator, Ibas, made some appointments. He is not obligated to continue to work with such people, but he has to find the balance. He has to find a way. Will firing the people that Ibas appointed ruffle feathers? Will it get Wike angry, for example? Did Ibas consult with Wike and some powerful people in Abuja before making those appointments? If he did, it becomes difficult for Fubara to move against them. Because I've had people say, "Oh, it's not obligated to run with the people that Ibas appointed," but he has to be careful because he does not know what and what went into making those appointments. Have some of them were even recommended by people around the president or Wike himself or other powerful people. So he has to find a way. How does he continue to manage Nyesom Wike? That is a challenge. And in doing that, he will need the president's support. At some point, the president will have to step in and say, look, let this gentleman, um, let him run the affairs of the state. Don't uh, continually get involved in what he's doing, you know. Or he will just leave, he will just play the good boy, hoping that by the time it's time for the elections, he will get Wike's nod, he will get the president's nod to continue in office. And then there is also the issue of what does he do next? Does he join the APC? I know that this conversation has been there even before Wike, even before the Supreme Court rules on the matter. Fubara had already been contacted about the possibility of joining the APC, and Fubara was quite uh, um, warm to the idea, was quite happy, to take such a step. But the crisis prolonged things. So what will happen now? At what stage will he say, okay, since I'm happy with these people who have afforded me a second chance, should I simply join the APC because he's talking about his being he's talking about utmost loyalty to President Tinubu. He's talking about eternal gratitude. These are strong words. Eternal gratitude to the president. How does he repay that eternal gratitude, that utmost loyalty? How does he demonstrate it? Is it by joining the ruling party? That is a big, big possibility. The question now is at what point will he join? Will he settle down, do some work before eventually joining the party? Is he confident that his people, those who have backed him to the hilt, who have backed him to the very end of the emergency rule, is he confident that if he joins the APC, they are going to come join the party, they are going to come with him? So there are things that the governor needs to think about, but he has said that he will work with the assembly and that he will honor agreements reached. I do not know which agreement he's talking about, but we know, you and I know, that in our politics, they can't reach this kind of resolution without without some agreements, some level of unanimity reached on certain issues. So he did not explain what agreements he meant, but he said he will honor agreements. I want to believe that in his relationship with his godfather, there will be agreements reached. There will be agreements reached with the president. There will be agreements reached with the House of Assembly. So, and the political leaders. Perhaps one of those agreements that he will join the APC. So I won't be surprised. People joining the APC, we've seen governors from the PDP, good number of them have joined, and some are still planning to join. At least I know two that will eventually join before the election, if not three, you know. So we really do not know what agreement is talking about now. But if we can come up openly to say that it's going to honor agreement, then we should expect that in the coming days, some of these things will crystallize, and it could be that he will join the APC, or that he's going to um, always consult his godfather before appointments are made, you know, which will put power firmly back in Wike's hands. So, which means
That's right.
Wike will obviously be micromanaging the affairs of the state. And
That's right.
having gone through, I don't think he is in the mood for a fresh fight. So, um, he has to find a way to balance things, because he also has to get the people on his side. If he continues to take steps that the people do not like, the people who had backed him, who had um, opposed people that they saw as his oppressors, as people who are repressing him, they could then turn even against Fubara. So
Uh,
this is a difficult time for him. And this is the time that calls for utmost use of wisdom. So we wait to see how he's going to uh, find the
right.
fine balance in this whole
Right.
thing. You and I know it's not easy. It's not going to be easy
That's
for
right.
anyone. These are tough decisions. There are tough decisions ahead for him.
That's right. Let me take some comments. Chinwe Okafo says, Fubara survived the storm. Now is the time to prove that rivers can rise again. This second chance must be about schools, jobs, and security, not just politics. Uh, Ifeanyi Nwosu says, heroic. Let's be honest. This is politics, not Nollywood. If Fubara doesn't deliver in 6 months, people will call it a wasted opportunity. Grace Omole says the crisis was never about Rivers people. It was about power struggles. Giving him a second chance means nothing if the same political godfathers are still pulling strings. Um, Abiola Fashola says politics is like football. Sometimes you get a red card. Sometimes VAR gives you a second chance. Let's see if Obara scores or fumbles. Basi Effiong says second chances in Nigerian politics are rare, but Nigerians also have short patience. Governor Fubara needs to act like a man with no extra life left. And Olumide Adeyemi says the real challenge is governance. Assembly conflicts, security in oil producing areas, and youth unemployment are still unresolved. Without bold reforms, this second chance would be a symbolic, at best, rather. Now, Biko, looking at the Rivers State House of Assembly, let's talk about them very quickly. They are seeking to probe the sole administrator. That's talking about Ibokete Ibasi's emergency rule. Even if that appears like a normal thing to do, what political implications would this have, owing to the fact that he was appointed by the president and backed by the National Assembly using the provisions of the Constitution? Could this lead to another, season of chaos?
No, I think that they are about to do the right thing. Yeah, in our country, we must take accountability seriously. There there are, there's every reason to look at what he has done. You know, he operated without a House of Assembly. Um, it's like a military rule. You just take steps that you deem fit. Nobody to tell you, no, you cannot do this. No, this is wrong. You have to follow these procedures. You know, there were steps that he took that ordinarily you you need clearance from the assembly, you need their buy-in and all that, but that didn't happen. And when you are faced with that kind of situation, you are literally not responsible to anyone. And if you feel that you are not responsible to anyone, illegalities will creep in because you know that whatever you do, nobody will say, no, this is wrong, you can't do this. You know, especially we know that a lot of our houses of assembly, they are mere rubber stamps to governors, but at least procedures are followed. A governor cannot operate a budget without that budget being passed by the House, without that budget being scrutinized. Although the three-man assembly headed by Victor Kojumbo didn't really scrutinize the budgets that Fubara sent, but we know that that was a season of illegality. Ordinarily, the budget should be scrutinized line by line. Did that happen during Ibas's time? The answer is no. And a lot of money was spent during that period. The people of Rivers State deserve to know whether some infractions took place or not. And I just hope that this is not plain grandstanding on the part of the assembly, because people will be disappointed if it turned out to be mere grandstanding meant to get people to support them. But if they are true representatives of the people, elected by the people, then they have an obligation to do what is right. And if we saw the kind of money that was reported that the administrator spent, such monies need to be looked at again. Such transactions need to be looked at again so that lessons can be learned. We need accountability. So I'm happy that they came up with that. I'll be happier if it doesn't turn to um, a mere attempt to um, get Nigerians to take them seriously.
Right. Let me take one or two more comments and I ask my last question. Kemi Balogun says, heroic return or not, the governor has a chance to rewrite history. If he focuses on young people and infrastructure, it will earn that hero title for real. Um, Saidu Mohammed says, until Fubara tackles corruption in the states, all this talk of heroic second chance is just grammar. Ngozi Chukuma says, heroic, maybe, challenging, definitely. Let's see if this governor can survive both politics and the people's expectations. Fatima Sulaiman says if he can reconcile with his rivals while delivering on budget and jobs, then yes, it's heroic. I agree with BKO. Otherwise, it's just another political merry-go-round. Kelvin Omorigi says Section 305 controversies and pending court cases may still haunt this administration. Heroic return doesn't erase constitutional questions. BKO, as we custom, in politics, a second chance is rare, as one of our commentators, one of our viewers mentioned. Do you
Yes.
believe Governor Fubara has what it takes to make this heroic second chance a story of redemption, or will history remember it as just another Nigerian political drama? And what does this say about his likelihood for second chance or second term?
It depends. If he's happy to do one time, he's happy to do one time, I can tell you that he may not pander to some of the demands of his godfather and other people. But if he wants to do a second term, man, who will want to be Rivers governor and not get a chance to do a second term? Because it's a very powerful position and the resources are enormous, especially at this time when governors are getting a lot more than before. I said on journalist and I was discussing with the governor of Kwara State, and he told me that what he did in 2 years was greater than what he did in 4 years. So, meaning that the whole of what he did in just 2 years of President Tinubu's administration is more than what he did in the 4 years, you know, of Buhari's
Harris
administration
administration.
when he was in office. So because they are receiving a lot more now from the distributable revenue from FAC, so they can do a lot more. So you can imagine a state in Nigeria, one of the Niger Delta states, receives on the average 64 billion in a month. That's a lot of money. 64 billion, that's a lot that you can do with that kind of money. And you can see a lot of the states are even paying off their debts. They are paying off their debts. Look at Kogi, what Kogi has done. Look at what Jigawa has done. They are trying to clear their debts so that even the funds that they are getting now, they can have all of those funds to themselves to deliver on projects and all that. So if he's thinking of just one term in office, he would want to ramp up work, finish the projects that he started, you know, without distraction. But if he badly wants a second term, he will be more interested in pleasing the people who oppressed him, the people who fought him and sent him on suspension. He will be out to please them so that they can give him a second term, and perhaps they've had conversations that look, if you do this, we'll allow you to get a second term, you know. So he is not an astute politician. He's not strategic at all as a politician. He's still learning the ropes, and that is why for the wickets of this world, it's not going to be difficult for them to dispense with the governor. And even if the governor gets the support of the people, they may still deny him that platform. And if they deny him the platform, where is he going to contest? Certainly, Wike is in control of both the APC and the PDP in Rivers State. So where does he go? Does he go to a less formidable political party? Can he win on his own strength if he goes to a less formidable party without structures and all that? So this is a choice for him to make. But I can tell you, if he's desperate for second term, he will be more interested in pleasing those political godfathers rather than focusing entirely on delivering the dividends of democracy. So it's, it's a tough situation that he has found himself.
Yeah, very quickly, Chidera Onwuka saying that Ibrahim, please help me to ask BKO if since Fubara failed to show up initially when the assembly resumed, what does that say about its political readiness or strategy? Is okay, yeah, that's what she said. She wanted to know whether is it a political readiness or just a strategy, based on what you said, whether is politically naive, kind of. Or
I,
whether
did, I don't. I, I don't think that's the case. Even when he didn't arrive on the day that he should have arrived, and Nyesom Wike came out to tell Nigerians that he will arrive the next day, that he traveled outside Nigeria. So I don't know what took him out, but the important thing is he's back in Nigeria and he has said that he will work harmoniously with the assembly. He does not have a choice. After all that he had been through, he would not want to kick off another storm with the assembly. He knows that the assembly is firmly under the grip of Nyesom Wike, that he could not even split up those guys and get some of them on his side to create a proper stalemate. I'm even, it makes me realize how weak politically he is. Because I've seen other governors in this situation. They got some of those people to their side. Look at what happened in those states. The governor desperately got them on his side, and today they have a majority. The APC has a majority. But that was not the case when the governor took power, you know. So why would a governor with the kind of resources at his disposal find it difficult to woo even one person from Wike's side? He couldn't do that. And those guys stayed together, went to court, and eventually they got victory. And once the Supreme Court pronounced that judgment, it left Fubara in a very, very weak position. At that point, you knew they could impeach him at any time. And Wike was working towards that. That was why he said it pained him that the president stopped what could have happened. So now
Mm.
he's going to have to work with those people. Well, you don't once you secure victory, you you are going to take advantage of the victory that you have secured. I'm sure that people like Wike, some of the people on his side now, the governor is in a much more vulnerable position now. So they will have to pander to them and do their bidding so that there won't be fresh crisis. So there's a lot of emotional blackmail that could result from the situation in which the governor has found himself now. So it
That's
is
right.
in his best interest to make sure that there's no fight. So he has to work with those people. If he then gets a second term, things can change rapidly. I've seen governors who behave like that. They will play the fool during the first 4 years. Once they get the second term, they will turn against their godfather. And at that time, the godfather cannot do anything. So it happened even in Akwa Ibom here. Akpabio brought Udom Emmanuel to power. The people who had worked with him, some of the bureaucrats who had worked with him, his SSG, and so many people that we all thought would succeed Akpabio. They never got the chance. Akpabio brought somebody from the bank and made him governor. Today, they are the worst enemies. They don't talk. They avoid each other's presence. If Udo Emmanuel is aware that Akpabio is coming to an event, he will not go there. You know. So, and he unleashed the fight. Once that second time we got, he unleashed the fight. So, other people too, same people do that. Fubara shouldn't
That's
have
right.
started that fight that early. It was a political mistake. It was a real political miscalculation.
Mm.
Shouldn't have,
That's
especially
right.
when it was clear that he wanted to kick away the local government chairman. It was clear that once you secure support, control of the grassroots, the structures are yours. That was what he wanted to do. But he didn't have federal support. And with Wike family on the president's side, you can bank on the fact that the president will give him the support, especially given that Wike delivered rivers to the
To the
president
president.
during the presidential election.
That's
So,
right.
president, if he had to make a choice between Wike and Fubara, it was natural that Wike would be the president would pick Wike. And given that even some of the moves that the president made to resolve that dispute at that time were not honored. For example, he was told not to bring caretaker chairman. He didn't listen. So that was the beginning of the crisis. Once it became clear that I didn't want to do an election, that I was much more interested in putting caretaker chairman in place. The signal went out clearly to Wike and his people that he was trying to crush Wike structures, and
That's right,
he
Mikhail.
was Wike was looking for that. Yes. So this is the
That's right.
thing. It needs wisdom at this time. Wisdom in ample quantity. That's what it needs.
Absolutely.
It needs premium grade wisdom to navigate this. it is treacherous situation. I do not envy this man at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. It remains to be seen how this whole governance and politicking will definitely pan out in
Mm,
River State. And that's our show for today's
yes.
edition of Issues with Jide. Special thanks to you, Baba Jide Kolade Tutoji, for those insightful analyses as always.
Thank you, Brian. We'll do this again next week.
Yeah,
See you in Lagos.
God willing. Right. Thanks to you, our audience, for keeping our company on every edition. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at TVC News NG. I'm also at Ibrahim underscore Shita. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Ibrahim Shita. See you again next edition. Bye for now.